G'day, Justin Hawke from RightSource, talking not-for-profit and governance, and I wanted to talk to you about something that a lot of people find a bit scary and almost like something they don't want to look at, and that's their constitution, and more specifically, changing their constitution. Now, it's a little bit, there's a lot of urban myth around constitutions and that, they're really hard and they're complicated, and to change them is just, it's not worth the effort. Well, I don't think so. Like, generally speaking, the Constitution, this is the core document that your organization is based on. Like, it's your governing principles. It has the power that gives to the board, why you're here, your purpose. It's your core document. Now, this document is vital to your organization, and if it's out of date, that's not a good thing. It will start to stifle your organization. So you should read your Constitution, number one. Number two, you should look at it every year, at least, periodically check it, making sure that it's all fit for purpose. What's in it actually makes sense. Now, if you get to it and you go, well, actually, this is a bit clunky now, we need to make some changes. Well, how do you do that? And the process is relatively straightforward. I think it just takes, like any good, well-run process, takes a little bit of planning and a little bit of understanding what's ahead of you. So, the first thing, how do you change one? Well, normally, how you change the Constitution is captured in the Constitution. It's usually by a special resolution at a members meeting. Now, what's important about that, a special resolution requires 75% of those at the meeting to be in favor. And this is important because in favor doesn't mean only 25% saying no, it means 75% in favor. So it means 25% who abstain or say no. And why this is important is that it really talks to the engagement. Like, if you're going to change the Constitution, you're going to want the members, who are the ones making the vote about this, being engaged in understanding why you're changing the Constitution. And this is the other part of that process, is that it's at a members meeting. So you need to know who your members are. That sometimes is a challenge. Sometimes it's just the board. Now, that can be relatively easy, but you still need to get the whole board across it. But if it's a larger membership base, well then again, it's about getting 75% of the members who come to the meeting to vote in favor of those changes. So they need to understand what the implications are and why. And ultimately, that member engagement is because it's their decision. Like, they're the ones who make the decision on changes to the Constitution, not the board. The board can make the recommendation and do all the work to understand why things should be done, but ultimately it's the members' decision. So, how do you start this process? Well, the first thing is understanding, obviously that review process and understanding something needs to get changed. Now, if something's identified as needing to be changed, you really want to get two types of advice for this. Now, most people say we need to get legal advice. Yes, legal advice can be useful. The other advice you want to get is governance advice. Now, the two different lenses are looking at the same thing. Legal advice will come at it from a little bit more of a risk-averse point of view, but also in terms of providing you options. They won't necessarily tell you which is the best option, but if you provide them, well, this is what we're looking to change, they will give you options. They also could do a read through the Constitution and see if there's anything else that they pick up needs to be changed or altered at that point. A governance lens comes probably more from how is the board going to use this going forward? So it's a little bit more how the Constitution will be applied, but also if you have a company secretary or someone with governance experience in the organization, they can be the one saying, yeah, but we want it to work this way. So it's more the practicalities of how the Constitution will work. So ultimately, I would suggest you have both. Depends on your budget, depends on who you have on the board and what resources you have. But I think both lenses are useful in understanding what changes you should make to the Constitution and what they would look like in their end form. Part of this process then is also articulating why you're making the changes. And that is often having that external advice can help be something you point to. So, well, we've spoken to these experts, these professionals, this is what they suggest we should do. But also as an organization in the first place, well, why you started reviewing the Constitution, what are you trying to achieve? Like, why are you making these changes? Because it is a big deal. So you want to be able to articulate that and sort of capture why you're making the changes. So an important part of preparing for the meetings, and this is stuff you want to do before the AGM, before the notices, is you actually want to go out and seek input from members. So especially if you've got a wider or larger membership base, you want to go out and talk to them about, well, these are what we're thinking of changing in the Constitution, and allow them the ability to provide input. Now, nothing may change in doing this, but it's always good to have the membership engaged. It'll help you get a temperature for, are they supportive of these changes? Are they not? Do you need to make some tweaks? Do you only need some changes now and some changes later? How do you go about that? And similarly, as well as members, you probably want to talk to some of your key stakeholders as well, because they may have influence, they may not be happy or may be happy with some of the changes. So just look at that. Probably the thing that if you are going to look to change your purpose, that's probably one that you want to be especially careful and cross all of those things, right from the legal advice right down through to your membership engagement, because the purpose, that part of your constitution, that's the heart, that's everything of your organization. And if you feel that that purpose has changed, you want to be very careful about, one, how you change it, because it can have implications on your charity status and that type of thing, your legal status, but also you want to make sure that your membership also agrees with that and your stakeholders who are engaging you agree with that, because it's important to get right. Now, what I often see when people do change their purpose is because their organization's purpose has evolved, and that's what everyone knows, it's just their constitution hasn't kept up. Now that's a bit simpler, but you still want to be careful and be measured in doing that. So once you've gone through an engagement process, you've spoken to people, you're clear on the changes, now you can get down to the formal part of changing your constitution. Now, first part is sending out as well. It needs to be done at a members meeting. Now, quite often people try and line this up with the annual general meeting, which is a members meeting, which is fine. You can do it outside of the AGM as well. So it's about a members meeting. In any case, for a members meeting, for a special resolution, you want to make sure the notice goes out with enough time, which is usually 28 days or a month in advance. And in that notice, you're going to tell them the decision that you're wanting to make, which is changing the constitution, but you're going to want to provide details about what changes are being made and basically have a whole brief so that if someone had not seen this before, they could read the whole thing and understand what's going on. That way, everyone who comes to the meeting is informed. The other thing that's important with this notice is to have a proxy form there. Now, a proxy form is important because for those who are engaged and happy for the constitution to be changed, they can lodge the proxy form, the vote be counted towards changing it, but don't have to attend the meeting. Now, this is important when you have a part of the membership base that doesn't want to change the constitution. It's even important if it's there, because if you get people who part of the membership base who don't want the constitution changed, it's easier to stop a constitution being changed than changing it, which is the whole point. You want to protect members. So people who don't want to change the constitution to be changed are more likely to turn up the meeting to vote no. Those who are happy for it to change, oh yeah, that's great, I don't need to turn up, it'll just happen. So proxy forms can be a very useful tool to make sure that those who are happy for it to be changed have their vote counted on the day, even if they're not able to attend. So then in terms of the mechanics of the meeting, you want to make sure there's enough time, because there still may be questions, even though you've done all this engagement, there still might be questions at the meeting, there might be disagreements, but that's okay, you want time for that conversation to happen. The other thing you want to be clear on, and will be dependent on how many members you have, is how are you going to tally the votes? So if you've got a small membership base, like 20 or 30, and you think that's how many will be in the room, that can be done quite easily by counting. You may want people to vote, to poll, or you may even want to use an electronic, especially if you're holding your meeting in multiple locations using technology. Getting to count hands up on Teams can be a little tricky. So you may actually want to invest in getting an electronic system that you can use, a software on the cloud system that you can use to help count your votes for that vote, so that you're clear on whether the resolution stands, because you don't want there to be any question over whether the 75% amount of those who could vote was hit. And then you run the meeting, hopefully it gets passed. If it gets passed, you want to make sure that it's updated on the ACNC and ASIC promptly. If it doesn't get passed, that's okay. Take the feedback, you can do this again. So you can run the process again, you can have another members meeting, you can do another AGM, that's okay, you can do that. And then you get right back into the normal process of reviewing your constitution once a year and seeing what else you might need to change along the way. That's today's video. I hope you found that useful about changing constitution. It's not as scary as it needs to be. It's definitely possible. Even if you need a little bit of help along the way, it's something that can easily be done. I hope you found it valuable. I appreciate you taking the time to watch the video. If there's other videos or other information you might be looking for in the not-for-profit or governance space, check out our YouTube site. We've got over 100 videos there on those topics, so good resource. Otherwise, again, thanks for taking the time. It's been Justin Hogg from RightSource. you.